Like we can't take another.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the November installment of the Lebanon Redevelopment Commission. We'll begin this evening, as we do each meeting, with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And Madam Clerk, if you can note, all voting members are present. Mr. Parks is under the weather this evening, so he was unable to join us. So we will begin with the approval of minutes. Everyone, I believe, received minutes a while back.
I'll make a motion we approve minutes.
Got a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion does carry. Thank you very much. Old business, I note nothing under old business, which will keep this agenda moving along very nicely. That brings us to our new business. We're going to have a discussion around the regional detention and conveyance, which is different than detaining. Mr. Kevin Krulik.
Hello. I apologize for getting caught in conversations out in the hallway. 1 second, if you'll bear with me. Let's see.
That looked fancy.
Okay. All right, so I guess some background, first of all. You mentioned regional detention, regional conveyance. So we have a regional detention plan. We have a regional detention ordinance in place that essentially, years ago, we thought the idea of building regional detention ponds to sort of aggregate detention systems, detention ponds for developers, and then sort of sell credits was a good idea. And certainly there was nothing wrong with that idea, but one of the things we saw is if we would have acquired land at the time that that vision was originally cast and the ordinance was put in place, we would be well on our way to building those regional detention ponds. So we've already built one of them, not to 100%, but there's one that is under development. But the problem is now is the price of land has skyrocketed so much that our plan is no longer really feasible. And also when we talk to developers that are developing in this area that we call the upper regional detention basin, which is really the basin that lies between 39 and 65, sort of in that field house area, but it's much bigger than the field house project. The field house project is about 90 acres, and that upper regional basin is roughly 1,000 acres. So much bigger scale that we're talking about here. But most of the developers are not really interested in cooperating in that system of building off-site detention that they can't control. So they would prefer actually the more traditional method of detention, which is just to adhere to our drainage ordinances and build their own detention systems on site. Originally, we thought it might be a good idea if that we can conglomerate these detention systems, then they can have 100% developable land and be able to maximize their development potential. But most of them are really not interested in that because it's just not how they function, not how the market in the industry from the development standpoint functions. So we went back and started looking at this area. And Christopher Burke, who's been our consultant since the beginning, said, you know, originally before it was regional detention, it was a regional conveyance system. And that was the key we thought we would need to put in place to develop these areas. And by regional conveyance, that's basically just saying that as properties develop going upstream in the basin, we need to make sure that they're maintaining capacity to convey those additional upstream areas through to the lower receiving streams. In this case, it's the sanitary ditch. Sanitary ditch runs around the west side of the business park and runs basically over to the CSX railroad, just west of 39. So from that point there, though, is where we have a pinch point. And we were going to have to upgrade that pipe underneath the CSX railway, regardless of whether we did regional conveyance or regional detention, because we need to get that 1,000 acres of land draining through and under those restriction points. So we've been working with Christopher Burke to design a pipe system that would convey that water under the CSX railway and under State Road 39 and develop basically a regional stormwater outlet on the east side of 39 that all those properties that will develop in that 1,000-acre basin can discharge to, and then we'll be responsible for conveying the regional conveyance system upstream through their site to the next property, so on and so forth until that basin is completed. So where we are at now, let's see if I can share my screen here. Sorry, having some technical difficulties getting this to come through. Try this one more time. Okay. 2087. All right, here we go. So, this is a file that you might recognize that I sent to all of you. I'll come back to the budgets here. So, let's look at this map. So this is the area that we're talking about. You can see I-65, the thick red lines. I guess I can't point to that screen going across the site, and that heavy black line is that basin that we are referring to. 39 kind of runs along the west side of that basin. Here it is, and zoomed in a little further, so you can see that red line, the red dash line, is the same as the heavy black line that was on the previous exhibit. I think you can see 65, you can see State Road 39, you can see the railroad tracks that sort of comes across the southwest tip of that basin. So what we are planning to do, is construct a pipe. This is showing you the railroad tracks is on the left of the screen there. 39 is on the east side, and the contours coming up to the west side of the railroad tracks is the upstream end of sanitary ditch. So there's an existing pipe there that's undersized, and we are replacing that pipe with a 54-inch pipe that will go from this upstream end of sanitary ditch under the CSX railway, along the existing legal drain tile there, underneath State Road 39, and create an outlet basin for all those upstream areas. So this is that same pipe system that was in plan view. This is in profile view, so you can see this is the beginning of sanitary ditch. This is going underneath the CSX railway. This is underneath the ground between CSX and 39, and then ultimately going underneath State Road 39 to a outlet point on the east side. So this project would include boring in those lines underneath the right-of-ways for both the railroad and the state highway. A couple of good things, and I'll get into this more, but because this is a legal drain, the State Highway Department and CSX will participate in the costs. So later tonight at the council meeting, we actually have an MOU that we have been talking about for a while. It's been executed by the county, whereby the county will allow the city to reconstruct the Price legal drain, is the technical name of this. And that's important because if we're reconstructing a legal drain, then that opens up grant monies from the state and the railroad company to pay for this. So I won't get too far into the weeds, but we've kind of broke out the prices for you based off of What is a city-county responsibility? What is the scope of the work underneath the NDOT right-of-way? What is the scope of work underneath the CSX right-of-way? Some miscellaneous costs. And then there's some upstream conveyance swales that we will be building, a portion of this upstream conveyance that will become outlet points for the Fieldhouse project, as well as some of the adjacent properties that are also, we think there are pending projects that will be happening in the coming months. So this total project, if you put that all together, is that fee right there, $1,611,305,000. That is the estimates that were put together by engineers working on the field house and engineers working for Christopher Burke to come up with that total. Then if you go to the bottom of the spreadsheet that I sent you, underneath the general assumptions, there are some cost savings. So couple things that we're looking at here is, I mentioned to you that NDOT will participate in this. Because it's a legal drain reconstruction, NDOT will participate at a 50% share on the project. And so that roughly, they will kick in a reimbursement of $165,400. That is for just the construction within, those are the hard construction items within their right-of-way. That line underneath there, also at 50% at $44,124, those are those miscellaneous soft cost items. Just to back up, what is in the miscellaneous soft cost items? Construction contingencies, because we're not to bidding numbers at this point, we're not to contract dollars at this point. Surveying, mobilization, demobilization, maintenance of traffic, bonding, insurance, construction, inspection, those soft cost items. So, as I mentioned, we've got the state's portion of the work under the right-of-way, $165,000 in hard construction costs, $44,000 in soft construction costs. CSX is even a better program. They will participate at 100%. So the portion of the hard cost construction underneath CSX right-of-way is $303,400. That's a reimbursement after we've spent the money. And then of those soft costs, $80,939. There's one that we also think CSX will also participate in, and that is, we can't open cut the CSX railway right-of-way. We can't really open cut the state right-of-way either. So this is assuming we are boring, we are jack and boring this 54-inch pipe underneath those existing infrastructure pieces. Well, you can't do all that work within the right-of-way. So there is a portion that is in the city-county responsibility, this line 3 there, the trenchless installation of $159,800. That is adjacent to the CSX right-of-way, and we're hopeful that they will see that feasibly has to be included in their project, because there's no way to be any closer to their right-of-way and do the boring. So we're not 100% sure there. We're working through this with CSX, but we're hopeful that $159,800 gets picked up at 100% by CSX. So a lot of numbers there. Again, I don't want to mislead you. The real cost of construction is still at $1.6 million. We're hopeful that these participating entities will reduce that to a total expense for the city of $857,641. But again, we're asking for a $1.6 million funding request that we are hopeful will be, portion of that will be reimbursed back to us by CSX and NDOT. And we're well within that, those approval phases with NDOT and CSX that include all of these numbers. So this is not like we're hopeful. This is the program that they run. There's no reason why we shouldn't expect to see these reimbursements, and we're working through all that as part of our permitting and approval process with both entities. So the funding request is for $1.6 million, and so that is to build our downstream conveyance outlet system that will serve that overall basin. We're hopeful that it would be reimbursed to us, and the total cost at the end of the project would be $857,641. But again, My request is not to exceed that $1,611,305. What questions can I answer?
That's the engineer's not in the weeds explanation of that, just so we're clear. Dr. Taylor, what do you have for us?
Pull the site map back up, Kevin.
Yeah, this one here?
It's approximately 1,000 acres.
Yes.
Okay. And at one point, there was discussion of extending Enterprise Drive from 39 to Hallbaker.
Yes.
Does this project interfere with that as a potential?
No, that's part of this project. So the Fieldhouse project is extending Enterprise Drive to their eastern boundary, and any project that comes in east of there will need to continue to extend that so that eventually, I don't have a drawing of that in front of me here, but eventually that will go all the way over to Hallbaker Road.
Okay.
and connect there. And maybe beyond that in the future too. It's hard to say. We've got a development, the Waterford Developments with the Hinkey Group is looking at, the 2,200 acres that they have southeast of town. They have visions of a new interchange in the midpoint of their project. So someday, we may be talking about Enterprise continuing to extend and create this outer loop between that exit as well. But again, that's just an idea that we have. There's a long way before we're getting to the details of that one.
One more, and this is just a general question.
Sure.
I saw the estimation was in 2021 dollars. This project, estimated completion would be when?
It would be completed next year, next summer. We're using 2021 dollars because those are the most recent construction dollars published by NDOT, and we're using those NDOT numbers, which are generally conservatively high. This would not be bid as a state-run project. This would be bid as a locally funded and ran and operated project. So we feel confident that's a valid number. That's a conservatively high number to use.
So given an estimate of, say, 8 to 9% inflation going to continue, would it be prudent to add that on to the 1.6 so we don't come back later on and ask for another 160 to?
I'm not saying it's a bad idea to add it on. It probably is a prudent idea to put that into there, but we are carrying some significant contingencies in this already. There's already 10% added in, so we feel confident that that would be covered. But again, it's hard to say. It's hard to say what the construction industry is going to do in the next few years. I want to believe it will eventually normalize, but right now it's anyone's guess as to when and if that happens. And in the construction industry, you never will receive the full benefit of the increases that we've already seen. It never goes all the way back the other direction.
Right.
But,
Thank you very much. Thank you.
In terms of timing, I know obviously it's a reimbursement
Yes.
from those other entities. Is that, when are those numbers or close numbers known? Is that on the front side of the project, or do we have to get all the way completed before?
No, on the front side of the project, so, if we have the funding in place, which we need the funding to be in place so that we can then, as we finish up the permitting process in the next, say, 30 to 60 days, then we'll go into bidding of this work. And again, I mentioned planning for construction in the summer of next year. Some of the conveyance swales may happen earlier, but definitely the major jack and bore infrastructure project of putting the pipes underneath the rights of way would happen next summer. So once we finish up the permitting, say in January, and then we immediately go into the bidding phase, and then we can lock in hard construction dollars and get that back to NDOT and CSX.
Okay.
And then those expenses probably wouldn't be incurred till sometime next summer, and then reimbursed end of summer for us. So
Okay.
I think this is all something that really happens in 2023.
Okay, and those do get reimbursed directly back to this commission then, correct, the RDC?
That's my understanding, that we would be able to do that, which I think is part of the reason why we're here. The RDC has graciously funded the other regional detention projects in the past. So one, there's that natural fit that we've already been using the RDC because this is in and benefiting the TIF districts.
Right.
But two, I think the financials are a lot easier in terms of reimbursing RDC accounts as opposed to other city general fund accounts.
Correct. And then I believe from a financial standpoint, the RDC's good from a cash perspective at this point, as far as,
7 million.
Yeah.
so in terms of cash, this would be a little less than 50% of the cash on hand
Yeah,
if
we're
it were a
showing-
direct outlay.
We're showing $3,764,611.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd point out too is,
I think, Tanya, don't we get another draw here in December? Yeah.
yeah. The other thing to point out too is that Ken's Foods, those tax abatements roll off next year. So they start making 100% tax payments, which round terms are roughly $1 million a year. And because there's no bonds associated, there's no debt associated with that project, that will be 100%
Yeah,
placed
straight
into
revenue.
your fund for
Yeah.
utilization.
So for the viewers at home, I think that, this commission is in a very good financial position. Even if this were a direct outlay immediately, we would still be very liquid, very solvent. So, that would not be a concern from a commission standpoint. Any other questions from commissioners?
Can I make one comment for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I would just say, I know the cities come to the RDC a lot for these bigger projects like this, but I think, as the area we're talking about, right, all of that is TIFed, right? And the benefits of this there's a very clear nexus with the RDC, and making sure that this drains well is an important part to develop this whole side of town, which again, we've TIFed because of all of the mechanisms for the field house, which then, those revenues then go back into the RDC, right? So that's kind of why, again, like Kevin, I thought this is the most appropriate. And I would say looking forward down the road with the LEAP project of how that's progressing, I think the RDC's role is, there aren't any more big asks coming, right? I mean, I don't see this as something that we're gonna, another big project to do, right? We've done a lot of great work, but, with the LEAP project happening too, like that's gonna shift a lot of the financial positions as well too, right? So, I wouldn't be concerned long-term from a financial perspective either as well. It's gonna keep growing, so.
Yep, absolutely.
Question, Kevin, would there be a chance that this legal drain will all be in the city at one time, sometime in the future?
I think that's reasonable to think that at some point this will be. That doesn't change the fact that it's a county-regulated drain. We have several county-regulated drains within city limits, just because county-regulated drains don't change hands because of annexations.
Yeah. But I was just wondering if we get into a position where it's well, we've already got drains like that, never mind.
Okay.
I have a question. Is the 3 buildings behind on by the railroad, is that going to be connected into this too?
Yes. So
All
the
that.
Cedars at Lebanon Industrial Park, which is
Right.
currently coming in for development plan approval. Phase 1 is 3 buildings. I think there's 5 total building sites there. This would be the discharge point for that project as well.
Because there's already a problem there anyway.
There is already really that was the impetus for the whole regional conveyance, regional detention conversation, because we do have a lot of drainage problems around the city. Boone County is very flat and is not well drained in a lot of places, and it's difficult to drain it because of the lack of elevation we have across the community. So that's what started this idea of regional detention and regional conveyance. And that's what we're just still trying to execute today. So, I should state that we will also, as a city council, need to also consider updates to our regional detention ordinance, because obviously we're changing this position, but we need to get construction moving forward on this, so we're not holding up projects, is why we're doing this prior to the ordinance updates that would be required.
And I will say too, what was it, 6 to 12 months ago, we were sitting here and CSX wasn't going to have a skin in the game. So seeing them with a skin in the game, this is kind of nice, so.
Yeah, and that's state code that requires them to participate. This isn't a grant application that we have to file and hope we
Right.
win. These are state codes related to NDOT and the railroads, which are also regulated by NDOT.
Right.
Pertaining to legal drains, which is
Yep.
why we are participating with the county under an MOU for this reconstruction.
Any other questions from the commission? The one thing I may add, and kind of in response to your conversation, Dr. Taylor, it may be prudent of us to potentially do like a not to exceed, like a 1.7 million. That would give a little bit of inflation growth in there. Not the full 8 to 9% that we may see, but between the contingencies, and that would be kind of a 1.611 is the ask, so it would be a
$900,000 cushion on
be 90,000, right?
90, I was going to say.
Yeah, roughly 90,000.
I'd go,
90,000, sorry.
I'm comfortable with 9%. I mean, obviously, fingers crossed, we're hoping at 857,000 and change total cost.
Correct.
We're sitting at, what was it, Dick, 3.2? 3.6, and we've got a draw coming here before the end of 2022. I will defer to you,
Yeah,
but
so-
I believe it would be prudent so that we don't come back, we don't slow the project up, we don't slow the bid process up, we move forward with this.
So
Comfortable in voting for that, I don't, pick
like
a dollar amount.
so rough on a 9% would get us to about 1.75. So 1.75 million
I
would
would
be
concur with that.
kind of a rough estimate there. And then, of course, this would be pending final legal review as well.
Of course.
Not to exceed, that's don't spend it.
Not to exceed. I will commit to you, we will do everything in our power to make sure we realize those
If you could talk to the Fed about that too, that'd be fantastic.
Just part of my concern is I hate to get in this.
Right.
We still have supply line issues, the inflation is yet to
Absolutely.
be determined where we're going to be. What we don't want to do is get into August and be a quarter or 3/4 of the way done.
Right.
And then we hit weather, that would be my layperson's interpretation of some concerns.
Yeah. Well, we wouldn't be able to go into contract until we have the funding in place. That's just something we have to do as a municipality. So if we open bids, say, in March, and it's not 1.6 million, it's 2 million, then, we have to have a conversation about what we do at that
I would
point.
expect to have that brought back and.
Right.
Absolutely.
So with
Well,
that,
let me ask this question. When do you think you're going to bid this project?
I think we will be moving forward with some of the regional, or some of the conveyance swale issues underneath the contracts that are already in place and the funding that's already in place for the Fieldhouse project. That $250,000 was additional to change these downstream drainage improvements to this swale. So that part, we think, will go forward immediately under the current funding systems that are in place for that project, the current bonds that we've issued. I think the pipes underneath the rights-of-way would be bid probably in March, is what I'd like to estimate at this time. So I'm thinking December, January, wrapping up all of our permits, and then bids in February, and then under contract in March.
which is right around the corner for those of us keeping track.
No, it's not far. So,
Good deal. So,
The only question I have, when I think about it, why would, if the contractor gets the bid, is he going to be held responsible for being able to supply the material?
yes, yeah, that would
If he
be,
doesn't do it, there should be a penalty to him.
Well, that would be the legal review, liquidated
That's what I'm saying.
damages, just like we have on the Whit Road
That's what I'm
project.
Right, yeah, we'll put
I
all
don't
of
want them
our,
to say you got 6 months before we can get the material. That's
Right.
crazy.
yeah.
Right,
They either bid it, they either know they got it, or they don't.
Well, I mean, this type of pipe, 54-inch steel pipe, that's not something you can buy anywhere off the shelf.
I'm
So
personally
typically-
interested
I
in the
understand that,
96-inch
but-
manhole.
That's what they've been doing.
See that on there?
They say they can't get it
8-foot
because of
manhole.
whatever,
Yeah.
and they just keep stringing it out.
Right.
No,
Say
I
If you
understand.
get the bid, you better know what you're gonna do when it starts.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying.
Yep,
That'll be the due diligence of the review process.
Yes.
right. So I believe the ask on the table would be
1.75.
a 1.75, so I would entertain a motion at the commission's will.
I move that we authorize the amount of $1,750,000 and not to exceed to be spent on title of the project.
Upper sanitary ditch regional conveyance system.
Good. Did you get
The
that?
project.
Sanitary what?
Upper sanitary ditch
Ditch, got it.
regional conveyance system.
Flows uphill, that's what I meant.
We should
just-
consider renaming sanitary ditch too, maybe something prettier, I don't know.
Just,
Motion appropriate.
USDRC.
just confirming that is pending final legal review as well, right?
Finally review.
Okay, sure. So we do have a motion. Before we get a second, anyone in the public wish to make comment? It's your chance. No? All right. So the motion's on the table of a not to exceed 1.75 pending final legal review. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second as well. All those in favor of the motion, please signify with an aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. The motion does carry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Appreciate it. And that is our only item under new business, so that moves us to the claims. I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we pay claims?
We've got a motion
I'll second it.
and a second. All those in favor signify with an aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion does carry. And the favorite of the evening, we have a motion to adjourn. Dr. Milliman's on the record officially with a second. All those in favor, aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you very much.